Welcome to Unscripted with Russo. I'm your host, Ashley Russo, president and executive producer of The Peak TV. For our podcast, we decided to explore the people behind the narratives. I'll introduce decision makers and influencers who are winners in their field and find out the intimate story behind their rise to success. Welcome to Unscripted with Russo. I am here with LaKeisha Thorpe. LaKeisha is the Assistant Dean of Graduate and Adult Studies at Moravian College. LaKeisha, thanks for being here.
I'm happy to be here. I think this is awesome.
It's exciting, and we've gotten to know each other only recently. We're fairly new friends. We've probably known each other about a year now.
Yep.
Because we're doing some work together. We're so excited at ASR Media to be working with Moravian College on your Graduate Studies program.
It's amazing to have you there. Honestly.
It's been fun because it's been a journey for everyone involved. It's sort of a new, uncharted territory for the college. It's sort of new to the area. It's definitely new for us and a different way to apply our skills. So I feel like we became, colleagues and friends very quickly because we've been in the trenches together figuring this out.
Absolutely the facts. Absolutely the facts. It's been this whirlwind, and it's been so nice because we can keep saying, well, at least ASR is there. At least ASR is there. At least we can depend on them. So it's made everything easier, even though it's been sometimes a little chaotic.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I appreciate it. We're excited about the opportunity. Well, before we get into how you became a dean at a college, I know there was a long journey to get there, and you're a lifelong learner, so there's a lot to talk about. But I want to start, first of all, with just some basics. Where did you grow up, and what was your family like?
Wow. So this is a fun question, actually. So I actually grew up in New York. I frequently say that I was dragged across the border
Like
of
New
the
York,
States.
where?
New York, I was upstate New York, actually.
Okay.
I was in Westchester, so just outside of the city, just outside of Yonkers. I grew up in White Plains, New York. Started high school there, did elementary there. I was what people would call their formative years. I spent there. My mom and my dad are both from Barbados. So my entire family's history begins in Barbados.
Did I just tell a Barbados story earlier?
Did you? That's hilarious.
Okay, so my grandparents, instead of going to Florida, went to Barbados. And so my dad and uncles and everyone grew up there. And then we as children went there for 2 weeks every single year of my childhood.
That's crazy.
Yes. And I was telling a story about how we were actually my parents were very big into experiencing the culture of wherever we were. And so we would go to church at a Barbadian church, and most people, especially the children, had never experienced, they always wanted to touch our hair.
Yes.
So we were like the white kids that came to this church, and it was just, but it's the most amazing, beautiful culture and island and people, and I just remember joy and smiles and family and Christophine and flying fish and things that you only get if you've been to Barbados.
Absolutely.
Right?
You said Christophine and my heart went
Me
where?
too. And I don't know how to get it anywhere. You need to hook me up.
You know what?
Can you make it?
Yeah, we
Does your
can.
family
Yeah, we do. Maybe what we do is just get you over for dinner.
See,
at some
this
point.
is something we didn't know about
No,
each
I had
other.
no
Okay,
idea
so your
that.
parents are from Barbados.
Yes.
Born and raised?
Born and raised.
Okay.
My mother came here when she was 21. And my father actually spent time in England first. That's where he became a nurse, and he actually was cooking, which becomes important later. He was cooking as a chef to put himself through nursing school. Then his idea was, let me go back to Barbados and I'll just keep being a nurse and I'll find that cute girl I was talking to, and that'll be life. He found out that my mom had moved, and then his sister said, well, actually, I'm in New York. Your girlfriend is in Pennsylvania, because she was here at the time. So they just hooked back up again, and a couple years later, here I am.
I like that he had left and studied, but he had his eye on exactly who he was going to go after.
Yeah, he was
knew that one's the one.
I like that one.
Yeah.
So they went to a movie theater, and it's interesting. I went back to the island. I try to go at least every other year. My dad lives there now, although my mom's here with me. And her and I were able to be there together, and she showed me the movie theater. It's in ruins now, but that's where they had their first date.
Oh my gosh,
So
that's really cool.
It was kind of cool just to
So
see
you
it.
grew up in Yonkers, and your dad is a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and what about your mom?
My mom was in banking her
Okay.
whole life. I don't know. I didn't get the numbers thing from her. I didn't inherit that from her. But I mean, she just loved banking, credit specialist. She worked at Citibank. She's just always been deeply entrenched in banking.
I love that.
And
That's when I go to a cocktail party and someone says, well, I'm in finance or I'm in banking. I struggle so much to not glaze over because it it feels the same to me.
The second you say numbers, I'm
and I'm out.
That's nice. That's great.
What about brothers and sisters?
So my dad actually has additional kids. I have a half sister and a half brother. I had another half brother, but he passed away when I was very young. So I unfortunately never really got a chance to know him. I saw my brother actually just when I was in Barbados a couple years ago. We kind of try to all go at the same time, even if we overlap a little bit, because it's very difficult to catch family when they live everywhere.
Absolutely.
So my brother
I have the same problem. Yeah.
It's crazy. My brother lives in Florida. I've got people in Canada, people in Barbados, people in England, people in Scotland, and it's like, when? How?
Yeah. Well, you're all over the globe. We're only over around the United States, but we're in 6 different states now, and we actually just booked a family trip next year to Mexico, and everyone's coming.
I'm jealous.
And that's like moving mountains. And by the way, you're planning 15 months in advance. People said we're talking about 2020?
Like, wait, what?
It's
hard.
So what is the dynamic in your household? Tell me about yourself what are you like at 8 years old? Like, what kind of kid are you?
I was the most obedient child ever.
Really?
In fact, I went to Catholic school in New
Okay.
York. And in fact, my parents thought for a little while there that I was going to become a nun because I was so, like, we have to pray now. Today is the feast of the da-da-da, when we have to do this. And I was so hyper-focused on it. And it's funny because now, I mean, I have a little bit of a potty mouth, and I definitely think it's interesting.
You're pretty fierce. I mean, I would say like fierce is a good word. For people can see you've got like a splash of bright red in your hair. Sometimes it's purple. You're I don't know. You're so outspoken and self-assured, and it's interesting to me to hear that you were this very obedient, calm child.
Extremely.
What kind of student were you?
Same. From elementary school, I'd always said, like, LaKeisha's a joy to have in class. Like, you always got the O's for outstanding. I can remember getting a satisfactory once. I think that might have been somewhere around the 3rd or 4th grade, and being like, oh my God.
Panic attack.
Like, my life is over. I cannot believe I just got a satisfactory. And I don't even think I understood what that meant, other than it wasn't an O.
Right.
Which was outstanding.
And you knew what that meant.
I knew what that meant. That meant good. That meant fantastic.
Oh, that's great.
So yeah, it's interesting. And my uniform, I always had to have everything right. And I can very distinctly remember, this was in kindergarten, we had to color pictures. And there was a tree and there was an elephant. And I was coloring my elephant and I'm coloring my tree. And I look over at the kid next to me and he's coloring the tree this really crazy color. And I'm like, that's wrong. And I made him cry.
Oh, no.
Because I was like adamant that he was doing it wrong.
That's fascinating because in so many things about what you teach now are courses that really ask students to think outside of the box.
Completely.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's funny that that's a memory that sticks with you. It must have had some impact.
I remember making him cry, and I remember feeling sort of bad about it, but I also remember thinking, but he should know the right way.
But you were still right.
So, I was like, I'm helping you.
That's funny.
I'm looking at him thinking, you'll look back on this and you'll appreciate this.
Yeah, someday. I wonder where that
really
kid is now.
Yeah, I don't know where he is now. Probably not crying.
What about hobbies? Were you into anything? Did you have like a hobby, sports, music?
Music and dance were really, that was like happiness for me. I would come home from school and my mom, like I mentioned, being financial, she was gone all day long. From early in the morning to sometimes late at night because of commuting, being in the city and coming back to not the city. My dad worked nights as a psychiatric nurse. So he was also commuting, about a 45-minute commute, and he was gone all night. So when I would come home from school, he was usually asleep. So I would do my homework, and then I would have my little record or cassette player, and I would like play it low and listen to music. I would dance. I'd put on my own shows in my room. I was very famous in my room.
Famous in your own mind.
Yes, I was extremely famous. But
that's great.
Yeah, dancing and singing and doing any kind of performance was fun. At school, I was in choirs, whether it was church or secular. I was always doing something creative in that way.
Interesting. Okay. And when you made the jump when you were dragged across the border.
Yeah.
Tell me about the move from Pennsylvania. And was that a kind of formative time in your life?
Yeah, it was. I was just about to turn, that fall I turned 14, I turned that fall.
And that is a tough time to have a huge life change.
It was harsh. I mean, not only are you're leaving everything. So, my parents had decided it was time to split ways. So there was that dynamic. Then there's leaving the home that I'd lived in since I could remember life. So there's that dynamic. And then leaving all my friends that I've also had literally my entire life. I mean, we all went to the same kindergarten, grade school, all together, went to the same high school. So it was leaving every element that I had become accustomed to. And it's not that I was unaccustomed to Pennsylvania, because my mom's family was here. Her mother, her father, her brothers, my cousins were all here.
So you spent like vacations,
Yeah.
holidays, weekends.
Absolutely.
Here, yeah.
Absolutely. I was here for summers. I was here over Christmas, sometimes over Thanksgiving. So it was just leaving the familiar, but going to a different kind of familiar. And then the culture shock when I started school was astronomical.
Describe that for me.
When I grew up in New York, we had a sort of a circle of 5 best friends, and we used to call each other United Nations because we were all first generation. It was myself, Barbados, and then my friend from Ireland, Ecuador, Portugal, and Italy. All of our parents were born elsewhere. So we all had that connection, and we all just loved hanging out and being silly, and it never occurred to any one of us, oh, you are from here or she is from there. We just loved being together. When I moved here, the first day of school, I was able to count the people of color literally on my 2 hands. And it was shocking because I had never been in that situation before. So I was like, okay, like I can be friends with anybody. And I'm thinking about my 5 best friends that, I can be friends with anybody, but I didn't anticipate this. So it took me a little while to find what I would call my own groove and being comfortable in my own skin again, because I was not typically reminded that I was Black every single day, but here I was.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And I don't know that you even also, to add another layer to that, it's a very unique experience, from what I'm told, to be the child of immigrant parents, and that is also not as common.
No, it's not, and it's interesting because
I mean, there are people who have been here from like the 1600s.
Yeah,
You've got
like
this Moravian culture that yeah,
exactly, as old as Moravian itself. That they can trace their roots to a couple of streets in Bethlehem, and me. I mean, all of my friends, what was really cool, we would go to each other's houses and we were all eating each other's food and not realizing that commensality with each other's families and that time. And we don't think about eating as sacred, but it is. We eat to sustain ourselves. We eat because, I don't want to pass out. I eat because I have nutrition. But eating is really a sacred thing. You're actually ingesting something into your body that is to nurture not only your skin, your hair, your organs, but your soul. In many cultures, the greeting is not, hi, how are you? It's, hello, have you eaten? Hello, are you hungry? So to do that was very sacred, and it didn't make my food feel weird or her food feel weird. It was like, oh, this is what you eat, and we eat this, and they eat that. How cool is that?
It's an amazing way to celebrate culture and people, as opposed to pointing out and focusing on differences.
Right.
Food is that common bond, and I love that. There are things I was exposed to in my childhood that were very inclusive. And made me, I think that's why I went into journalism. I was just super fascinated by people, ultimately. But I didn't realize until much later in life that is not normal.
Right.
Like, the norm is that people know only their very narrow focused of what they know. Exactly. I didn't realize that not everybody, I'm Catholic, but I had been to many Passovers and bar mitzvahs.
Same.
And bat mitzvahs by the time I was 13 or 14, 15 years old. And I didn't know that wasn't something everyone did. So yeah, that experience has got to be interesting.
It is, and I savor, and I can still think of the first time I went to one of my friends' homes for Passover and celebrated that with them, and just like, wow, this is amazing. And I can remember other people saying to me, well, you're Christian, like, how can you do that? And I'm like, because it's cool. I don't know. Didn't think of it
sort
as
of a part of all of our history in a lot of ways.
It is.
Well, we have so much more to talk to you about, but we're going to take a little bit of a break. When we come back, we're going to talk to LaKeisha Thorpe a little bit more about her education, first jobs, and some of the lessons she's learned along the way. You're listening to Unscripted. Stick with us. There's nothing like wintertime in the Christmas city, but any time of year, Bethlehem's rich history, culture, food, and fun make it a great hangout spot. Take a walk on the artsy South Side, catch a great band at Steel Stacks, or enjoy the quaint history of Hotel Bethlehem. There are so many options, but before you book your trip, head over to Facebook and like Lehigh Valley, PA. Before you know it, you'll have a full itinerary of places you won't want to miss. Thanks for listening. You're back here with me, Ashley Russo, on Unscripted, and my special guest today is LaKeisha Thorpe. She's the Assistant Dean of Graduate and Adult Studies at Moravian College. LaKeisha, you were telling us about your childhood, your upbringing. Now you've moved to Pennsylvania. You moved at this critical time in your life, 14 years old. Everything you knew, lots changed. Do you look back on that time at all and feel any sense of either gratitude or what you learned? I mean, I think it's difficult when everything is rosy all the time. You know, what do you come through? So what was that experience like? Is there something you look back on and say, thank goodness that happened because it taught me X?
Oh, I want to say thank goodness, but I can't. I want to be that grown. I do. I can't. What I can say is I'm glad for the friendships that I made because of the move, truly. One of my best friends in the entire world, Deirdre, her and I have done so much together as friends. We did a production company. We've won awards for filming and for writing and for acting and for casting. And, you know, we've done so much together. We've gotten each other through many, many times. It was a joy to be in her wedding and, you know, to now I call her daughter my niece. She's not even a year old yet, and I absolutely just love her to pieces. And her husband is like a brother to me. So I'm glad for things like that. The experience was at that kind of tender time of life, like you said, it was just so difficult to see the good then. But looking back, I think I'm most grateful for the friendships that I found because of it.
Awesome. And where did you go to high school?
I went to Bethlehem Catholic.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Where they're filming today?
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
Is that
boy.
funny?
Oh, jeez. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks. Well, my kids go to Central, but, you know.
I wanted to go to Central. They had cuter uniforms.
They're still pretty cute. They're not bad. They don't complain about them. They have nice pullover quarter zips now that are, you know, pretty fancy.
I feel like I missed out.
What'd you get involved in high school, and when did you sort of decide on a path? Because your path has not, what you do now is not what you've always done. So tell me a little bit about that journey.
So if I start with high school, I was arm twisted, and I do mean arm twisted, to join the band. Which is actually where I met.
What instrument did you play?
I played clarinet.
Okay.
And I still kind of dabble with it from time to time, but I'm really not anywhere near as good as I was in high school.
Aren't you glad that's where you met Deirdre?
It is, right? So that's why I have to say, I get upset when I think about it, but I'm like, no, there were good things about that move. There were good things. So yes, I did the band, and I was there for 3 years just because of like when I moved. I started as a sophomore at Bethlehem Catholic, so got out of there. Then I really wanted a different experience. So I was kind of used to having the bigger things in New York, like bigger groups of people, bigger community, and I kind of wanted to go back to that. So I actually did undergrad at Penn State. And my time at Penn State was awesome. I mean, it's everything from student leadership to protesting to making my own minor to just taking classes. You know, I was that reckless undergrad that didn't think about the money I'd have to pay back right now. So I was like, that class sounds like fun. I'll take that. So, and I'm kind of glad I did that, you know, despite the fact that it's expensive way to learn. But it let me see so many things and gave me so many opportunities and chances that I was happy for.
I like to hear that because my son is a junior right now. It's the first year he could pick a lot of electives. And we really just let him do what he wanted to do and deal with the guidance counselor. And we weren't trying to be those overbearing parents. And he's got this kind of very eclectic group of classes, but he said, I don't really know what I want to do. So I want to try this stuff to see maybe I'm going to love this one thing and it'll spark it in me. So I'm glad. That's good. That's affirming.
It is.
Now, what did you study? What ended up being your major and your minor?
So after I kind of bounced all over the place, I ended up having, I have a bachelor's in psychology and a minor in African American and urban literature.
And you made that minor up?
It didn't exist at the time when I was at Penn State.
How awesome is that? Does it still?
I'd imagine now that they've kind of broadened it out and they've made it a thing. But at the time, they were like, yeah, we don't think anyone's ever done this. This is new, but sure, you can go ahead and do it. I wanted to maybe do the major. By the time I got to the end of my psych degree, I realized I don't think I want to do the psych degree, but I don't want to be taking a bachelor's degree for 5-6 years either. So I just added the minor. And
meanwhile, that degree probably comes in kind of handy because there's a lot of things that I think you learn.
Absolutely.
Life is basically, psychology.
It is. It absolutely comes in handy, especially when I deal with students, now.
So what were some of your first jobs, or what was your very first job?
My very first job out of undergrad was well before the master's, well before the doctorate. My very first job was doing case management actually at B'nai B'rith with the elderly. It was a service coordinator, and I found too many dead bodies.
Oh, that sounds terrible.
Yeah, so I decided maybe no.
That's not for you.
Maybe do something else. But that experience also had its pluses and its enrichment, because we sometimes discredit our elderly and we don't speak to them enough. We don't hear their stories. And I used to actually like to do my visits when I would just kind of go from apartment to apartment to apartment and hang out with people for a while.
So this is so funny. It's funny how many commonalities we keep finding. My first volunteer experience that I did all through middle school and high school was at a nursing home. There was one at the end of my street, and it was a 30-bedroom, almost house. It was bigger than a house, but it wasn't one of these big facilities you see now. It was very personal, and I used to go 3 days a week and help serve dinner, and then all I would do was sit from table to table and talk to people, which my parents thought was fabulous because I was not talking to them.
Oh my God.
They got a break. and I love that. I felt like it taught me a lot of respect for the elderly and what they can offer in their life experiences to a younger generation.
Absolutely. There were two women who really, really stick out. And the one, she's already extremely old. She was, I think, 100 and maybe 101.
Wow.
By the time I had met her. And she couldn't see very well. So everything in her apartment had to be very exact. If this pill bottle was here on the edge of the table, it's because that's where she knows she kept it. So the very first thing she told me, she was like, you can come and see me anytime, but don't touch anything. Don't move anything. And I was like, I promise you I won't touch a thing. What she could see was light. And her great niece, I believe it was, would send her Swarovski crystals every Christmas. And she would hang them on the window. And at certain times of the day, the way the light would come in, she could see those. So I would bring a flashlight with me, regardless to when I came, so that we could shine them and she could see those lights.
How neat.
And to me, she didn't know this because I didn't tell her, but it would always make me cry, because everyone in her family was so old that they were also either in homes or couldn't leave or lived too far away. So really she had, the phone call here and there, but she really didn't have anyone to visit her.
And it's amazing how many people are in that situation.
Yeah.
Well, when you realize that this is not really the career path for you, what's next?
So I kind of decided, at that time my mom was making pretty good money, and I said, I think I just need to do something else, and I don't know what that is, and I'm young and I'm confused. And so she was like, okay, well then stop for a little bit and figure it out. So I stopped, and when I initially went to Penn State, I wanted to do communications as a major. So I actually kind of went back to that, and I was on a radio station in Philadelphia for about 4 years on an AM station. It was talk radio. It's called The Streets Are Talking.
How did you even find that opportunity?
This is one of those times where my story and Deirdre's story kind of converge for a second again. So she was living, I think, was she in Philly at that time? She bounced around too, and I'm trying to think. She was doing filming and acting and stuff like that, and she was like, what about radio stuff? She's like, you always kind of dug that. Look at a couple of these ads. So she sent a couple my way. I did some more research, and I found this one. It was actually a contest. So I actually went down to Philly, and they're like, you come on the show and the voters are going to vote for our next member. So I went on, I did the show, and it was unanimous, across the board.
That's
so
awesome.
I ended up getting on the show.
That?
It was pretty cool, actually.
And what were you doing? Were you doing talk, news? Okay.
Yep, so it was talk radio, and I had the entertainment section, and then I started doing some spoken word at the end to close the show, so it was something that I would write during the show and close the show with. And then, right around 2008 is where I started to do that. that is when, Barack Obama was running, Hillary Clinton was running. There was so much contention between the Democratic Party. So that was a lot of what was going on a talk radio show. It was dealing with, there were people that would call, they would yell, they would scream, they would be angry because I said, as a woman, I feel like I need to defend Hillary. And as a person of color, I need to defend Barack Obama. So I'm like back and forth, and I don't even know what I'm going to do yet when I get to the polls. And there were people that were accusing me of being too white, and accusing me of siding. And I'm like, I don't think we have sides like that right now. That's not what this is about. And it was really just trying to defend this position of this is a historic election. No matter who gets the nomination, we need to feel that and be a part of that. And I was feeling the unity in that. So it was just a really interesting time to have that job.
Wow, that's awesome. And how long did you do that?
About 4 years.
Wow, all right. And then
in the crux of that, I remember thinking, I should have money. So I should have more money. So I said, let me see what else I can do, maybe part-time. I started doing, I was writing, like freelance writing, editing, book reviewing. Then I stumbled into LTRC because they had a part-time evening recruiter job. And I took that just around 2009-ish. And that's when the higher ed career really started.
All right, well, on that note, we're going to take a quick break because when we come back with LaKeisha Thorpe, we're going to talk about your career at Moravian College and how far you've come in the last 10 years and where there still is to go. So stick with us. You're listening to Unscripted. Family time is about creating memories together to last a lifetime. And what better way to bond than spending time at some of the amazing attractions the Lehigh Valley has to offer? You can cheer on the Lehigh Valley Phantoms or take a walk on the wild side at the Lehigh Valley Zoo. However you enjoy spending your free time, there's something here for every member of the family. For more information on things to do in the Lehigh Valley, head over to Discover Lehigh Valley's website at discoverlehighvalley.com. Welcome back, everybody. I'm here with my good friend LaKeisha Thorpe from Moravian College, and we've heard about her amazing journey from New York to Pennsylvania, meeting her best friend Deirdre, going to Penn State, her job in radio, and then you get introduced, you go to LTRC for this part-time job, and you get introduced to the world of higher ed. What did that do for you, and what did it spark in you?
So it made me remember when I was an undergrad. So in undergrad, I was a line ambassador at Penn State, which is sort of your student ambassador group. I was working with admissions all the time, and I really liked the atmosphere of that. I liked the energy of the office. I didn't want to be in a stodgy, boring place, so I enjoyed that. And I still love a college campus. To me, there's nothing like a college campus in fall. There's something about the air. I don't know what it is, but the energy. I love it. The lattes in the air. I don't know what it is.
There's a lot of hope too, I think. I feel like that's a time of life where there's a lot of hope.
Yeah.
Kids are there, they're hopeful, they're excited about their future.
Everything's kind of just bubbling at the surface. So I started to feel that a little bit. And then what I distinctly remember is every once in a while, there was this conference room that was kind of right outside of admissions at that time. And it was one of those big conference rooms where all the important people meet. And I would just see them go in there and close the door, and in an hour or so they'd come out, and then my boss would come into admissions, and all of a sudden we'd start to hear about things being disseminated to the rest of the faculty and staff. Now we're doing this, now we're doing that. And I can remember thinking, well, that's not a great idea because of various reasons, for whatever it might be. And I started to think to myself, they need someone in the room who gets it. I don't think they get it. I'm like, I get it. I need to get in that room. And that's kind of where it started for me. Like, I need to take the next step here.
You always hear people use the phrase, get a seat at the table. Mm-hmm. And you literally wanted a seat at the table.
Literally wanted a seat.
You've gone on to get your master's and your doctorate.
Yep.
What did you study? And when did that lead to this job at Moravian?
So for my master's, for my next steps, I knew I wanted something different from Penn State. I was very much into the traditional undergraduate sort of experience, but I wanted something different for my master's. I needed something flexible because by that time I needed to work. By that time, my mom had had a heart attack. She had had a couple of operations. My mom's almost died about maybe about 8 times since I was a little kid in various, she was burned, she had a heart attack, operations, hysterectomy. It's been just a several things. Many times when, I leave the house, I kind of back away. I'm like, just sit down today,
don't do anything too strenuous.
Yeah, don't do anything. Maybe just put your feet up. So I know I needed to work. I couldn't step away from a job at that point. And at that point, my job at LTC was getting closer and closer to being full-time. I was working a lot of hours. So Goddard College has a low residency master's in fine arts, and it's in creative writing. So I just went to Vermont for 1 week a semester, and in 4 semesters I was done.
That's awesome. Great way to do it.
Yeah.
And what was your plan at that point? Did you have one?
At that point, I knew I wanted the master's, but I also knew I didn't want to get a master's in higher ed. I didn't want to get a master's in something that was going to drag me down. I wanted to have more fun, and Deirdre and I had our company at that point, and I wanted to kind of get more into the writing, more into the acting, and the program at Goddard let me do that. I was in a bunch of different plays. And what's awesome is Goddard College has alumni like, William H. Macy, the Matthew who wrote Silver Linings Playbook. That was his Goddard thesis. So you have these people who had really, really strong careers in industry after being at Goddard, and I just wanted to have the experience there. And I did that, and it was amazing. One thing I think that really sparked my next step at Goddard, they have something called a teaching practicum, where you have to actually go and teach somewhere. And one of the deans at LTC was teaching a class. He let me teach a little bit in his class. I ran some classes at a community center and got my hours in, and I thought, this is really kind of cool. I never thought I'd like teaching, but I kind of dig it.
Yeah. And what brought you to Moravian?
So let's see, right when I started grad school, I actually left LTC, went to Albright for 4 years, finished my master's, and I started thinking, let's see, the only step here between me and my boss's boss is a doctorate. And I've been in meetings with her. I could do that stuff.
That's awesome.
I can do that. So I thought, I'm not done. I need to do a little bit more if I actually want a seat at this table. So as soon as I was done with my master's, I started looking into doctoral programs, knowing once again, I cannot, go to class every night at 6:30. It's just not going to work for me. So I chose the California Institute of Integral Studies. They had a low residency doctorate. I figured after Vermont, California was fun.
Right, why not?
Why not, right? So I went to the woods, now I went to the beach. So I went to literally, for 2 years of coursework, I went to California for a week every semester and finished my coursework, and then did my proposal and my dissertation and finished.
And what is your PhD in?
Okay, so that's a little bit of a longer explanation. It's what's still new to higher education. I would say if I have any barriers or, bridges to cross or mountains to climb, it's still in this. It's in transdisciplinary studies. So it's taking a multitude of disciplines and kind of just weaving them like a blanket in and outside of each other, and just finding all the balances and finding all the interconnections.
Sounds super important. Like we should have more of it.
I think we should, and it's getting recognized a little bit more and a little bit more, but I think from a higher ed perspective, they're still hedging. They're like, is this really what people want to do?
And maybe there's a fear level because people take such pride in their specific field, and the idea of weaving that together with other fields, I don't know if there's just some trepidation in there, but to me, that's where the world's going, right? I mean, it's obviously the cutting edge of where education needs to move and where the world is going.
It's too easy to find answers now. I think at one point we could guard and silo our disciplines because there were gatekeepers. Faculty were gatekeepers. Faculty had all the information. If they chose to disseminate it to you as someone who maybe didn't know, that's fine. Otherwise, they could cluster themselves in their departments and smoke pipes and drink coffee and grumble. Right. But now, with the internet and with how connected the world is to itself, now things can be so much more complex and in my eyes, beautiful. So in looking at what I could do with a degree and where I wanted to go, I wanted to keep that flexibility within myself. And I wanted to pay homage to my family and to my parents, and to the things that I thought were wonderful about my culture. So I weave that into my degree. I have probably about 9 disciplines that I actually used in my dissertation, which people, how is that possible? And I'm like, well, you use several disciplines a day. You're not just doing one thing all day long.
And it is interesting how you look back at the various people and influences that you had in your life. And in a lot of ways, they are very different and unrelated, whether it be New York to Pennsylvania, nurse versus banker, immigrant versus resident, these are all things that make you who you are. What a cool thing to get a doctorate in something that can do that for everybody.
Absolutely.
So tell me a little bit about what you teach now and your role at Moravian and where you kind of hope to go to.
So in teaching, I use the same approach I did with my doctorate. So my dissertation is varied. It's about how we tell stories. So very much like what we're doing right now, but it's how we tell stories through food. And I took this really interesting approach where I leaned on my master's degree at Goddard, and I wrote my dissertation as a short story where it's kind of about a woman who's trying to get people to understand, and about curses that witches can put on food, and about how a gentleman has these experiences with everything he eats becomes another person in another time. I imply that type of thing with my classes. So I teach everything from the Marvel Universe to food that we've eaten in World War II Europe, to women in media, to intro to women's studies, to literature courses, and I just weave all this stuff into big balls of education. I know, ever
since I've met you, I keep saying, I need to come take one of your classes. Can I just audit a class? I want to sit in the back of your class.
I would love that.
I just think it's fascinating. And I love that Moravian seems to have given you this cool platform to also come up with cutting edge, interesting classes. I mean, it's a small liberal arts college in Bethlehem. It's beautiful. If people have not been there, you're missing out. It's absolutely beautiful. But I love that they're doing some really creative educational offerings.
I have to say that there are a handful of people that they'll go, okay, you're teaching about what?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, just hear me out. But they have really given me carte blanche. What I love is in the first year writing seminar, which is where I taught about the Marvel Universe. It's your standard college English 1, but as a faculty member, or you get to pick what topic you want to teach. You have to have it approved, but you get to pick. And I just wanted to do something fun, but I also wanted the students to look at the world. My very first one was about the consumption the consumption that we take in, what we take in every day, and what it actually means to us, and what it actually says, and what it actually does, what our media is all about. It was a very heavy course, and it was in the mid of the 2016 election. And the day after, I had crying students, and I was teary-eyed, and we were just trying to work our way through it. And it was really the perfect time to be teaching that course. When I taught the course the next time, I was like, I need to make this a little bit lighter because the world is heavier. I need to find a different way of approaching these topics. And I started with the Marvel Universe because it's so layered and the characters are so rich and there are so many things that we could poke holes in. And I picked a really great year because, we had like Thor Ragnarok and Black Panther and Infinity War, and everything was happening that year. It was amazing.
And I would imagine things that students could really relate to, even if they didn't quite know what they were signing up for. It probably sounded interesting, and having them show interest is probably half the battle.
It was, because we'd get in there and watch a trailer and just dissect it and talk about the intricacies of it for the entire class period, and it was fantastic.
Dr. LaKeisha Thorpe, we are so lucky to have you as an educator in this area and to the students, and we're so blessed to work with you and see where this next chapter is going to unfold for online and graduate education courses, and kind of I can see how you're weaving together so many educational opportunities into one course. I had to say, I didn't even know what a Master's of Science in Predictive Analytics was. Never heard of it. Never said. I am so fascinating. Working with you, meeting the people involved, it involves leadership and business development and mathematics and data, and it's just the intersection of so many things that I'm fascinated in. Who knew?
Yeah, I know. It is amazing. It's an amazing program, and we're so excited to be working with you to get it completed. And every time we hit a milestone, I'm grateful for this team. I'm grateful for my team at Moravian, and it's been great, honestly.
Well, thank you so much. On that note, we're going to end things, but before I let you go, I want to do a quick rapid fire.
Sure.
For the audience, you have not heard these questions, correct?
Oh, no, I have not.
Okay. If you were a flavor of ice cream, what flavor would you be and why?
Oh, wow. I'm panicking. I would be durian.
What's durian?
Durian is a stinky fruit from Asia. It literally smells like a rotting body, but they make ice cream out of it, and it can taste utterly amazing, and I would love to do that.
Okay. I'm not going to delve into the why.
Yeah, there's more there, but we can talk about it later over drinks.
If you could have one skill instantly that you don't currently possess, what would that skill be?
Fly. I want to fly.
Okay. I'm not sure that's a skill, but I like it. I think it's more of a superpower.
Yeah, it's awesome. I just
But we
want to
can
do
go
it.
with it. If you write an autobiography, what will the title be?
Wow, really? That would be it. That would be the title.
You can invite 3 guests to dinner. Who are they?
Wow, Jim Morrison.
I mean, Jim Morrison in and of himself
Right?
would probably be good enough for dinner.
John Coltrane. I didn't even go if they need to be alive or not.
Nope.
Barack Obama.
Awesome. All right, the best place you've ever traveled?
Greece. Santorini, Greece.
Oh, I'm so excited. I'm going next week.
Oh my God, it's
I
gorgeous.
can't wait. All right, place you've never been that's top of your bucket list?
Paris.
It's a must-see.
Yes.
Dr. LaKeisha Thorpe, Moravian College, thank you so much for being my guest today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you, Ashley.
You've been listening to Unscripted with Russo. Until next time.